Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 65 of Podcast vs. Enemies, a Destiny Massive Breakdown show. It's good to be back with the lads this week after a brief break as we dive into Season of the Deep. There is a ton of content to cover and get into, so let's jump right into it. Court, who do we have to thank this week before we get started?
Hello, Saint and Impetus. Hope you guys are well. Nice to be back. We've got a few folks to shout out this time. Someone over on Reddit actually reached out to me, Army of Rojak, just saying podcast is awesome, doing the Traveler's work. Some new patrons to shout out, Tech One and Wash. And of course, our lovely sponsors keep the lights running in the background. We have A Modern Viking, Askin Monk, Bryce Roney, Deacon, I Am Crows, Moonlight, Shazo, and This Moment. Reminder, you can send us all kinds of feedback directly to any of our socials or via the Destiny Massive Breakdowns Discord server. Positive, critical, and constructive feedback helps with the trajectory of the podcast and how we present and break down builds, activities, and much more in the PvE sandbox for all kinds of Destiny players. We also want to extend a special thanks to and appreciation to everyone that supports PvE, whether that is downloading and listening to our show, discussing it on the Discord server, or supporting us via Patreon. Speaking of Patreon, if you'd like to support the show, please visit destinymassivebreakdowns.com and click on the link to Patreon. You'll get access to members-only channels in Discord, behind-the-scenes information, input on the future of the shows, plus access to our legendary annual merch drop. You can also check out our sibling podcast, that's Destiny Massive Breakdowns, that dives into the nitty-gritty PvP sandbox with Ill Physics and Lego the Flash, and Beneath Twin Suns, the Star Wars podcast that explains it all with Mercules and Kit Kutcha. All right, Impetus, how are you doing, and what is this week's show outline?
Hello, lads. I am doing well. That was a very nice break that we got to take. This show, we are talking about our early impressions for Season 21, and we're going over the new perks, the new weapons, the new exotics, just giving overviews, lots of new stuff to talk about, what we're keeping an eye on, what we're chasing, and then we'll do some breakdowns in the coming episodes. So before we get into all that good stuff, though, of course, it's time for our weekly segment, What Did We Do in and Out of Destiny 2 last week, or in this case, the last 2 weeks. I've been doing deep dives. That's part of our seasonal activity. Been doing a new dungeon, doing some Last Wish farming, all good stuff. Been filling up my time, having a blast. Saint, what have you been up to?
It's fish, man. Everywhere I go, I see fish. Okay, seasonal activity, it's fish. I'm in the helm, there's fish. I'm driving around on patrol, fish. Okay, I'm farming Last Wish. Somehow, still there's fish in there. Okay, I'm having a good time though. There is a lot on the board, and I'm even bringing on the fish myself. I've become a MMO fisherman, which I do feel like is really bringing that MMO feel to Destiny 2, even though that seems like such a silly thing. And other than that, it's the new dungeon. Right, still fish, but we're in the dungeon. We get some Lucent Hive. Shout out to Court and Payton, taking me through the first run there. Really had a blast learning that. Some good loot drops, shockingly, on the first run. And also, we'll talk more about the dungeon in a minute. But I'm really happy to have a reason to use my origin trait with some bonus Lucent Hive damage. Has been a nice little thing there, and we'll talk about how that could be potentially shaping some dungeon meta there. But Court, how about you, man?
Yeah, lots of fish. Very interesting little thing that they've added this game. Very not casual, but very chill way to get potential exotic drops and endgame currency, which is always nice. Deep dives and, of course, the dungeon runs as well. Been really loving the dungeon and the deep dives. Farmed the Last Wish. Some juicer rolls in there. Can't wait to talk about them in a future episode. And sort of outside of in-game Destiny, but still related to Destiny. I have released 2 infographics since the last episode. That is the Season 21 Champion Counters and the Season 21 Rocket Launchers Overview infographics. You can check those out on my socials or over on the Destiny Master Breakdowns website for all those lovely links. All right, speaking of fish and deep dives and dungeons, as Impetus said, this is going to be the sort of kind of early season impressions. We're going to be looking at weapons, perks, exotics. First, for this type of episode, we're also looking at some changes that they've added to a lot of the exotic gear that we've received as well. But yeah, early season impressions. So let's kick us off with the sort of early beat of the narrative and the story. How are we? How are we feeling? Got Commander Sloan back. She's looking
Sort
a
of.
bit, yeah, half and half. We have a new ally as well, in the form of a giant fish, and got a bunch of activities as well. So yeah, let's kick us off with the story beat. How are you guys feeling?
Impetus, take it away, man.
I loved Titan. It was one of my favorite. Actually, I would say that was probably my favorite vanilla D2 location. Just a really bizarre place. Really felt like it fit in with the whole Destiny 2. We're gonna put you on a methane sea moon, and then we're gonna put a big arcology in the middle of it, and it's gonna be really beautiful, and there's gonna be gorgeous sunsets and sunrises, and it's gonna be raining the whole time. And I was like, yeah, sign me up, cool, let's get over there. So yeah, always nice to be back there. And we did start to get what felt like a long-held desire of mine, which is to spend more time inside the arcology rather than outside of it. But that's probably more for the dungeon than the actual seasonal activity, which takes us in and around the arcology underneath the water. Yeah, loving the narrative. Excited to see that the long boy in the soup is actually a long girl in the soup, and that she's on our side. Sloan seems like some stuff has gone down since we last spoke. Very excited to see how that will play out over the coming weeks. And we got kind of a taken in hive season, it seems like, so far from who we've faced in these activities. That's going to be nice. Excited to see. Well, I guess there's also some fall in there, but for the most part, it looks like it's going to be taken in hive. So very, very excited to play against those enemies again. Take a break from our cabal, and excited to see how this ties in with kind of the broader narrative of what we're doing to take back what's left of the Traveler after the Witness did something to it. So still not quite clear how that's going to tie into the broader expansion narrative that we had in Lightfall, but we are starting to learn a little bit more about the Veil. There's a separate activity for that we got. We'll see if that ties in at all, if we even get more stuff within the actual seasonal narrative. But so far, I'm loving it. Feels nice, kind of in that swing where it feels good to play the seasonal activity over and over again. I know that will start to die out over time, but I'm enjoying it for right now, the salvage and the deep dives. How are you feeling, Saint?
I mean, Titan's cool. I think that I would probably still say that Nessus is my favorite D2 vanilla location. But yeah, Titan's a very cool place, and this is the second time we've seen, like with the Leviathan, right, of a destination coming back in a season, even if it's not a patrol space. That's, I mean, that's always a W from my point of view. The biggest thing, like, narrative wise, I think that the stuff that we're kind of like getting from Sloan and her like weekly little voice lines are, I'm not sure what to make of it. I'm trying to understand like the perspective that it's coming from, and I think it's one of those things that the further we go into the season, the more clear it's going to make even some of the very first voice lines that we're getting kind of like through the Leviathan, right? And as that context continues to build on itself. But Xivu is very cool. Xivu Arath is a very like just gnarly voice, I don't know how else to describe it. Whoever the voice actor is, just A1 on that. And I think that's something that's very difficult because Oryx is like one of the franchise's oldest villains, and Savathun has also, just had an absolutely massive role in the story, especially over the past like few years, like right leading up to Witch Queen and Witch Queen itself. And it's like, man, how do you, like, how can you possibly at this point like build up the third sibling and like still make them a meaningful character in the story, despite how much Oryx and Savathun have like impacted the story? And I think that like they're doing pretty good. I think this is about as good as you could do to introduce a character like that, and you're trying to build on the story of like the Hive, siblings, right, and their just kind of dynasty, their effect on each other, their thoughts about each other. Goes to the deep, like goes a ton into that, and I think that was really cool. We were collecting all the little calcified fragments, right, which I think was actually giving that story as we went through the dungeon the first time. So thanks, Court, for that. Appreciate that. That was a good story beat there. The Veil story was not much of a story, and I really am hoping that continues over the next few weeks. Is there anything new on that kind of quest line or anything like that this week? I don't know.
There's a node that you have to go activate for extra lore. There's actually no prompt. This is something that you need to just remember yourself, which is not a good design in my opinion. You can go back into, I think it's that room. I don't know how you get into that room, but there is a node in that the final boss room of the campaign, which is also the end of that initial activity. You just activate it, and there's new voice lines every week.
Yeah, so when you launch that activity from Neomuna, it'll just spawn you in that room, so you can just walk up and interact. I had a little kind of look around, very casual look around after kind of getting that kind of lore piece, I suppose. But there's nothing else that changes. Like, you don't fight anything. If you go down to the Callus boss fight area, which is open, you can go there. Because I initially thought, oh, is this where I'm supposed to go? But nothing was spawning. I was like, okay, no, I guess not. Let me reload. And yeah, it was just right in front of me. So assuming this will just be the exact same for every week, we'll get little story beats. Maybe we'll go and defeat another Tormentor down in that boss arena. Yeah. But yeah, it's a weird way to implement it, but I suppose they do want to front load the lore and the story for Lightfall, because we didn't get much last season.
And I'm just happy to hear that there's something, because I played through that first mission and got the hand cannon, which is really cool. That's great weapon and everything, very interesting design. But I was like, okay, there's no shot that is like the story that they have been talking about. I was like, I was like, I'm not going to get pessimistic about this yet. I'm going to give it like 3 weeks. So I'm very happy to hear what you're talking about, Corda and Impetus. So I'll have to go check that out after we finish recording.
And I've been told that it stacks. So if you do forget at any point in the future, you just load back in, and they'll just all play over and over in a row. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe for like our mid-season episode, we'll just remind our listeners to go back into that mission.
Minor win right there. IMO. That's kind of nice.
Yeah. So we have 2 activities for the season. We've got a 6-person and a 3-person. The 6-person is called Salvage, and then there is a 3-person Deep Dive. That's the one that I think a lot of people are kind of latching on to. That one's a lot of fun. You do have this optional difficulty that you can activate inside the activity, not from the outside. It's not selectable in the sense that like Master, Grandmaster, Legendary difficulties are. You have to activate this in the activity, which has led to some frustrations for certain LFG groups, but that's beside the point. Salvage. Let's start with that one first, though. How are we feeling about Salvage? I personally think we could have maybe twice the ads to really make that feel a little bit more enjoyable. But how are we feeling about kind of running around on top of the ocean and then jumping down beneath the waves to go fight a Hive boss in Salvage?
Yeah, you guys know my thoughts and sentiments when it comes to low ad activities. And this is one of them, and I enjoy the whole, like, everyone's got like a job to do. Everyone's got stuff. You got to fix a crane, or you need to defend wherever, or defuse some bombs. But the actual ad situation is kind of driving me away from these, and like a lot of it is dead air. A lot of it is waiting around. I'm not sure if it's because folks just stack up at the spawn points and just kill ads as they're spawning in. But generally speaking, I just feel like the ads are just way too small. Like this would be great for maybe a 3-man activity, but yeah, it's
Man, you know what? It feels like I'm in a public event with 6 people.
yeah.
On Titan is like the feeling that I get, honestly, which I think is right in line with what you guys are talking about. Because, like, yeah, honestly, if you stack up a glimmer extraction with 6 people, you're just going to stand there, right? You don't need to really be doing anything at that point. And yeah, I mean, it's cool to just kind of run around on Titan, but I mean, I don't know. That's about it.
What was our most recent 6-man activity before Salvage? I'm trying to remember which season we. Oh,
It didn't happen last season, right?
Was it Plunder with the
Yeah.
Catch Crash?
Yeah,
That was great. The amount of ads, and even if you could stand at the spawn points and just kill them as they were coming out, there would still be like 10 times the amount of ads that were spawning in Catch Crash than there were in Salvage.
Yeah.
I want Catch Crash ads in this activity. I think I would enjoy it a lot more, but yeah, it's not for me, Salvage.
Yeah, agreed. Court Catch Crash was it.
What is for me, though, is deep dives. I'm having a blast. Yeah, there is some kind of frustrations when you're doing it LFG or you're just doing it matchmade. Trying to get everyone to talk to Toland, the Taken Orb, can be a bit frustrating, but if you're just going in, say it was us 3, if we were going in, we can communicate, right? Let's do the Taken-fied version to get the sort of extra chest at the end. By the time this goes out, I think we'll have the third depth, the third lowest, or the bottom depth, as far as I'm understanding anyway, which will give us the maximum amount of tiers to get all this beautiful loot. So we're only at 2 when we're recording this, and yeah, they get progressively harder, which is a bit of a shock compared to, if you just load into an activity, you kind of know what to expect. Its intro is the exact same as the outro. Whereas here, intro is not the same as the middle, and it's not going to be the same with the outro, the third encounter, if you want to call it. Having a blast though, a lot of fun. Again, it's got that kind of, you got to go do stuff. Everyone's got to do something, help defend or pick up these big relics, big wrenches to fix the various things. But yeah, a lot of fun. The actual modifiers pick up from Asha, who gives us like increased precision damage or increased void damage. I'm loving those as well. I think they were wanting this to be more like a roguelike is what I think they were kind of describing it, where it gets progressively harder, but you get these bonuses on top. And so what if you don't get to the third depth, you'll still get to the final boss fight and you'll get some sort of reward. So it is that kind of menagerie type where if you don't manage to get the encounter done, you're still going to teleport or get to the end boss and get at least some loot, which is a nice little kind of heart back to menagerie. So really loving it. Impetus, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I do think that they nail the right amount of ads in here, which I guess when it's a 3-person activity, a little bit easier to kind of calculate that right amount for than 6 people. But yeah, I mean, I'm very excited to get the third and final layer done next week. This is definitely something that I could farm a lot longer than, say, doing multiple salvages back to back, especially if I'm with a team that we could reliably get all of the extra rewards on all the extra on all 3 floors. Gonna come next week. So that being said, though, I mean, it's it feels really nice to play, even though the power level does go up between the floors. There's not a whole lot of modifiers on there. Like, we don't have locked loadout. So even if that final floor does happen to be pretty steep and challenged, we can make on the fly adjustments, which is always a nice feeling for a seasonal activity, especially if you're trying to go for the best kind of rewards and you're already on the third of 3 floors. You don't want to fail at the last second. So I think this will age quite well as a seasonal activity, I'm getting plenty of red borders to drop, so I'll play it until I get all of it. It'll be fine. And the seasonal engram armor focusing has suddenly been juiced out of nowhere. So even if I do get all my weapons unlocked for crafting, I'd still go back in for those engrams, because then I can just turn them in for some crazy stat rolls and get my loadouts even crisper. So yeah, I'm loving the deep dives. Saying, have you been focusing armor? Did you know they juiced the armor stats for both the seasonal vendors and the helm, actually, last season's and this season's?
This is one of those things where I heard that and I was like, oh yeah, no, that's nice. And then I was like, I'm just like scrolling through Discord or Twitter or something, and I'm seeing people post their armor pieces, and I was like, holy shit, look at this. This is just like obscene, and yeah, now I'm interested all of a sudden, I kind of brushed that off, and I should not have just brushed that off. I remember like the war table back in the day.
Oh yeah.
I had that, and we have reached back to that point, which is really nice, because now I just stacked up so many engrams last season that I was not using, and now I have like a legitimate reason to go burn through my engrams. I've like, we'll talk about this later in the episode, but I'm trying to put together a couple new builds for like point contact, cannon brace, and second chance, and some of these other armor pieces. And this is like a great way to add in a few other like high stat pieces to my set, or to my like, armor vault and collection for armor picker to pick through meticulously and optimize, some really high stat builds there. So I'm always looking to throw a couple extra spiky pieces in the vault there, and that's really nice. Speaking of new builds, I've been using an Actium War Rig build for our seasonal exotic. That is the Centrifuse. It is a ARC 450 RPM auto rifle, and it has some really... Well, first of all, I'll say that, we don't do a ton of exotic reviews, but like exotics always have really unique stat packages, and this thing is no exception. It doesn't have like super strong base range, but its stability and handling are both like way out of band for your typical precision auto rifle, like almost double the handling of some. And the way that its whole, capacitor perk works is that you can bump that range up as you continue to use the weapon, and it's just like a ton of fun to use. It gives me a real the sniper from Destiny 1 Hereafter, right? When you get the kill and it blinds the crowd, it's it feels like it has a really good ad clear weapon. I don't know how good this is gonna feel without using like War Rig to pump it up. Have you guys been using this exotic at all?
So,
oh yeah,
I've been using it, really enjoying it, but I can see like this is maybe for Titans. I think the whole Fallout actually put a video out pretty early in the season. It's like, oh, you're using this weapon wrong, and I think that is actually true. Where a lot of people are like they're reloading, and I am also a compulsive reloader, so I do that thing. But the whole gimmick with this is you keep running around, you keep shooting, you keep sliding, and that's what reloads your weapon. That kind of gives that progressive kind of ammo back. And that's for, obviously, Hunters and Warlocks, but Titans have that even better with the Actium War Rig. So I've been enjoying it, but I need to retune my brain every time I equip it to not reload, because that's not how you're supposed to use it. The whole gimmick is... It's that static electricity when you're rubbing your feet with socks on a carpet or something like that, So that's the...
And then just put it into your gun, and you're good to go.
Yeah, it's a really fun exotic. For a seasonal as well.
Mm-hmm. I used it in the seasonal activity in salvage specifically, and because those spaces are so wide open and there's so few enemies, I actually have not been manually reloading. I've actually got to take advantage of the sprinting gradually reloads the weapon part of it, but I've been thinking about, taking this into a dungeon or raid or GM, and I'm thinking like, oh, I'm not going to be running around as much as I am in these seasonal activities, so I don't think I'm going to actually get to take advantage of that second perk as much as I am right now when I'm running around waiting to shoot one enemy that's, my other 5 teammates have left for me. So yeah, I'm a little bit worried. I'm still working on getting the catalyst out. I want to play with it, of course, when the catalyst does drop, but it certainly feels strong. I mean, I'm killing enemies with ease, and that's nice. And the effects are quite helpful for ad clear, which is what we expect out of an exotic primary. But yeah, the manual reload is definitely not the play, and I fear I'm probably not going to have as much of an easy time sprinting, running around a GM Nightfall, especially while there are enemies still up to keep my weapon, to keep bullets in my weapon's mag. So we'll see. I don't have high hopes for it too much, but I will keep trying it out, of course, as the season progresses.
Well,
all right. Go ahead, Corey.
Yeah, speaking of high hopes, we have dungeon weapon this time. It is the Navigator. It is our first Strand exotic trait rifle. So it joins the 5 others plus Ruinous Effigy. It is our kind of big support trace rifle. So the whole gimmick here is if you shoot the Navigator, which is a random drop from the dungeon, by the way. It's the end boss fight. We'll obviously talk about the dungeon in a future episode with all the weapons and a sort of brief activity, pain point activity breakdown. But Navigator, I got it on my 3rd playthrough, and I've been having a blast with it. There is something that's not listed within the perks. So Weft Cutter is one of the exotic traits. Dealing sustained damage severs the target. Sever is the apply a debuff. It's not a weaken. It's the enemy does reduce damage rather than you deal increased damage to them. I think it's 40% for enemies. But if you keep that trigger held down, you'll also get woven mail, which doesn't say that in the exotic trait. We're not sure if that's intended or not. But the actual exotic trait for the trace rifle is Protective Weave, which is firing this weapon at an ally grants woven mail to both the user and the target. So we've got a nice kind of pseudo power / support weapon. You guys managed to get this? I think Impetus, you got it fairly recently in one of the runs.
Also my 3rd run.
What?
Oh yeah, dude.
Dude, I'm in the dark over here, man. Imagine not having the dungeon exotic. Apparently,
hey, there's some triumphs you can do to bump your chances up, dude. Just go solo right now. Come on.
What am I doing?
If you can find someone that's doing a catalyst run, because you just need to do a normal run, it's not a master run. You'll also get an increased boost for doing for helping them out to do the actual catalyst run.
Yeah, cool change.
Did not know that part. I heard about I know about the triumphs, but that's
Yep.
Very cool. Is this you coercing me? Are you guys trying to get me to do?
I don't have the catalyst, so if you want to come help a brother out,
right. I do have the catalyst, but all right, but I can help out. Very interesting weapon here. Been having a lot of fun just using this, and it looks cool as well. It looks just amazing. But this, they're starting to tap into this. Like support-based exotics. We've got, I think, was it the Warlocks that managed to get? The Warlocks have got the trace rifle, which is very apt for this weapon. They've got a trace rifle exotic that came out this season, which is also support-based to get heavy ammo. So they are tapping into this. In our first developer interview with Chris and Vivian, they did speak about this. They were thinking about, or they confirmed that they want to do more support-based exotics. So here we are. We've got one. In terms of like synergy, I think Titans maybe they don't need this because they can get woven mail, really easy. But for hunters and warlocks who maybe don't have direct access, they're not necessarily using the fragment that gives you woven mail when you pick up an Orb of Power, or if it's a GM environment where Orbs of Powers aren't as frequent, this might be a kind of good thing to bring in. This season we also got Trace Rifle Overload, so pair it with this thing, have some fun, get that woven mail, 50% DR, sorry, 60% DR.
Yeah, definitely a niche weapon, but I definitely could see this having a place in Master Raids, especially if you're in a boss encounter. I think, Master Nezarec is certainly a challenge. So you have one person there just kind of beaming everybody, especially because that's such a wide open area. I would also think like Master Rolk would be a really easy place too, because there's not a lot of obstacles there. You got your runners going into bank a sign. You tag them both quickly with some woven mail just in case some enemies spawn in as they're trying to get out. There's definitely a place for this. And yeah, I'm kind of excited to see more stuff in this vein, because it's a fun idea of hitting your own allies with your gun. That's such a untapped play space. So I like that idea a lot.
Yeah, we had like Lumina, and that was pretty much it, right? That was the only thing that would do anything like this. And I it's just like, if you want to play Strain Titan, for some reason you don't want to use a Bayant Leap, I mean, here you go. Look no further, and it's got some great seasonal mods around it right now this season. But even past that, I'm feeling like this is going to be a weapon that you see in really high-end content where you're in like a contest mode raid or something like that, and you have players that have to expose themselves for a mechanic, just like, exactly like you're talking about, Impetus, with the depositing of the, whatever it is, symbols in Val the Disciple. When we run into another raid situation like this, dungeon like that, I can definitely see this kind of working its way into the meta of like, oh, just tag your runner real quick, and then you don't even have to like think about it. They've got huge DR. They don't even have to be running Strand to benefit from this. You could be amplified with your, object and picking up woven mail.
I should say as well that, again, this isn't necessarily listed in the description for the perks, but I think it's between 5 or 10 shots sustained damage, but you do get 5 ammo back for free as well. It's not from reserves. So, and I do want to point out, because I think a lot of folks, when they hear, oh, it's just a support weapon, it doesn't do damage. It still does damage. It's not Agar Scepter. It's not like your think of like Cold Heart in that kind of realm, without the escalating damage bonus if you sustain fire on the target. Think of Ruinous Effigy, where it's got its own separate minigame. That's the kind of vibe we're getting here. So it still does decent enough damage. This season, again, we've got Overloads, Trace Rifle, and, Trace Rifles are in a reasonably good spot when you're mixing it in with your double special builds. But it does damage. Don't think of it's not doing anything outside of just firing at your teammates. It does some good deeps. It's no Cold Heart. I still think Cold Heart's the chief when it comes to top slot trace rifles, now that we've got 2. But it's a really fun one. All right, we did get, it's not a new exotic, but it is a catalyst. We always like to shout out those. Malfeasance got it. There was one in the API, the behind the scenes that have been sat there for forever. I think we were all kind of assuming it was going to be that. It was called Big Boom. It basically made the Malfeasance explosion, the slug explosion, bigger and more damage, but that's not the case. They've instead gave it plus 20 range and Vorpal Weapon. So for my hunter friends, get your lucky pants out. If you want to do some serious damage with Malfeasance, with that Vorpal Weapon against a champion, Lucent Hive, Tormentor, or just any old boss, then get that out. And it's a kinetic weapon, so you don't need to sync it up with your with any sort of specific class. So Haven't managed to get it to drop for me, but I have been seeing plenty of videos where it's like, oh, look at it, it's malfeasance, it's doing serious amount of damage, and it's like, yeah, that's true for a kinetic primary weapon, but I'm not going to be necessarily trading it out for Leviathan's Breath. Trade Leviathan's Breath out for malfeasance.
Those unstoppable taken phalanxes won't know what hit them.
That's true, yes.
All right, what else we got?
There is one more weapon. We haven't gotten it yet, but you can go look at your exotic weapons in the collections tab and see a redacted symbol somewhere. So we are getting one more later on in the season. I do just want to put that out there.
Mysterious.
Yes, indeed.
Intriguing.
I was just gonna jump over into our exotic armor. I'll kick us off with the Titan chest piece, Arbor Warden. Using your class ability, it gives you a throwable grenade that spawns a barricade on impact. This is like incredibly well executed as far as an exotic. It's got its own like custom animation. It retains your barricade functionality. So that's like suspend, lash, fire, or overshield, whatever it may be. I think this is like, it's very interesting. I think it's something that could be kind of a clutch up if you're like have a teammate that's overexposed and you just throw an overshield barricade like right in front of them. I think this is really probably going to be more of like a high skill ceiling PvP type of an exotic armor. I'm going to be hard pressed to like take this thing into a GM over some of my other just exotic options, but that's not to say that it is not it's a unique functionality. It's interesting. They think they executed it well, and even like gave it all of its own like I said, like it's got a whole unique animation and everything where you use your class ability and you kind of like take this little grenade thing out and then and throw that wherever you'd like to throw it, which again, very cool. Not probably a very big PvE one. Maybe there's some scenarios where I want to be able to throw a suspending barricade, but then I'm like, why wouldn't I just throw a shackle grenade in the first place? Just shackle grenade with extra steps.
I think the one thing that I've seen people maybe utilizing this is, again, it's another like support-based exotic where you're on voids and you've got is it Bastion that makes barricades void overshield, gives people around it. So if you're far away, you throw this grenade at your teammates to give them the void overshield on the cast of the barricade. That's something I've seen folks talk about, but not necessarily see it in practice. But yeah.
I'll be giving it a try in some more high-end strikes, but we just got a lot of other. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that's reworked, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Just how you feeling about this helmet?
Haven't gotten it yet. I was hoping to grab the new exotics from the Vex Incursion Zone, and that has not been the case yet. I think that's they said it was a bug that they're aware of. So, I haven't gotten any new exotics. I typically like to wait a few weeks just in case one or more of them get disabled or tweaked in a significant way. But it doesn't. It looks like we're in the clear so far for all three, which is nice. But yeah. Warlocks, we some people are calling this ugly. I call it inspired. We got the Cenotaph mask. This will steadily reload a portion of your equipped trace rifles magazine from reserves. When you damage a vehicle boss or champion with a trace rifle matching your subclass, it marks it as a priority target. I did see this in a seasonal activity. It is really distracting. It's like, oh, what's over there? It's a huge marking. And then if an ally delivers the final blow to a priority target, heavy ammo spawns for them. Naturally, a lot of people were using this with Divinity to give Divinity even more of a support role and also create heavy ammo. So that's been very fun. But yeah, I'm excited to use it. It seems, it's another support exotic. That's fine, but it's one that's based around trace rifles, and I've come to really love trace rifles over the past few seasons. So I'll be trying it out. It seems like, especially with Cold Heart, it could be really nice, especially when I'm using that on a vehicle boss or champion. So we'll see. I want to play around with it.
Should point out this. We're not sure if this is intended, but it says matching element but that's actually not true in game.
Oh boy!
They actually recently
Oh,
updated
boy.
the English text description to match that plus some other stuff, but that's not the case in game. You do not need to be matching the element, so you can use Divinity while you're on Void or Solar. Again, this might change in the future, and yeah, the ammo brick is around about 10% of the total reserves that you'll get. So it's a reasonable amount. It's nothing substantial, but yeah,
Loving it. I'll go chase it when I can get it to drop from Vex Incursion Zone.
I think it looks great.
I personally love it.
It's the Xenomorph from Alien.
Love having a huge backhead. Really helps me stand out.
A huge side table on my on my skull.
That's actually that's where you store all the extra ammo. You see, of
course,
you need
dude.
the big
Yeah.
top. Yeah, exactly.
Trace rifles have a lot of reserves, so that actually that makes sense from a lore perspective. Gotcha. Court, how's the new arms treating you? I know you have those.
To be honest, when I first saw them, I'm just like, okay, great. It's another exotic. Like last season, one of them was just like, I never probably going to use this, but I have been using it and I have been enjoying it. I wouldn't really describe myself as a glaive enthusiast, but if you love glaives, then this is definitely the exotic you want. So this is Triton Vice, and its whole gimmick here is increases glaive reload speed and melee damage when surrounded. I think it was 150% damage. I'm not actually sure. It might have been that, or if it was just typical surrounded damage, like what Syntheseps have, which is like 80%. I'm just throwing numbers around because I'm honestly not sure how much the damage is. But yeah, so that's step one. Glaive melee final blows overflow around to the magazine. Glaive projectile final blows detonate if the glaive deals damage matching your subclass type. So I have been using this with the Hunter exotic glaive. The name escapes me. But I've been using
Intent? I can't remember.
Yes, Edge of Intent, yeah. And it's been doing a lot of work. Obviously, this is the season of Arc. So pairing a lot of the artifact perks, which we'll talk about later on, and just the sort of recent buffs to Arc itself. A lot of fun. But again, will this exotic be used in endgame content? Will I use it? Probably not. But in deep dives or just doing the salvage stuff, doing patrol missions, I might just bring it out and bring out my edge of intent or Winterbite. It does affect Winterbite. It goes from 3 magazine up to 6. So if you want 6 of those stasis turrets flying around in the open space, it's great fun. But yeah, again, I think similar to Arbor Warden, it's maybe not necessarily got a end game type of synergy going on, but I appreciate that they're doing more of these kind of specific melee weapon exotics. And if you like glaives, this is the exotic for you.
Hey, you say no in-game viability, but we still need to do that class.
This is
class glaive GM. And so
we
I
didn't
feel like
do that
you're
last
getting
season.
set up with that right here. I see a build inbound. You know,
absolutely. Sorry,
about that.
it's 30%. It's not 150. That was, I'm thinking of something else completely.
Good God, man!
Just a little different.
It's like Winterbite recently got fixed to then get completely overpowered with this thing.
Yeah.
Again, it's a lot of fun, but yeah, end game viability, we'll see.
I just looked it up. It's Edge of Concurrence is the Hunter one. Edge of Intent is the Warlock glaive. And then I was also looking at some other glaives that were all surrounded. Because I know there are a few. You got Lubrise, Judgment of Kel'Grath, and then the new Trials one, Unexpected Resurgence. So that could be fun to see if those stack for some fun extra projectile damage when everyone's up close.
We're obviously not doing weapon breakdowns this season, but there is a glaive that has the kinetic debuff Disruption Break, which does, I recently found out, it does affect the melee and the projectile. So you could start pairing all these damage buffs to go completely nuts. But there's very few like bosses that have shields in the game, or at least elemental shields I'm talking about. So it's trying to find a scenario where you could get this to work. It's very, very niche, but yeah. We'll talk about Disruption Break glaives another day.
Yeah. Like Court said, we're not going to be doing a bunch of breakdowns this episode, but you just hit on some highlights here for all of our new weapons. So I'll start off with the Foundry set. We have Old Sterling, Adaptive Strand Auto, Combined Action, Arc Aggressive Hand Cannon, Last Foray, Solar Aggressive Sniper, Glissando 47, a Strand Precision Scout. And then we also have the Niamuna kind of quest weapon, Buckle Integration, which is a solar adaptive hand cannon 140 there, which is kind of like a ritual weapon, which is interesting. It's got Keep Away or Stats for All, and then got Eye of the Storm or Incandescent. And it also has Harmonic Resonance or Nanotrack Tracer Rockets, which means that you can use it with your Rooted Nightmares weapon set and get all of the bonuses that come with that on the Handling Reload, and then like damage bonuses for those specific enemies, which is really cool to see. Any one of these like really jumping out to you guys, or any of them that you get to drop yet? I think Old Sterling is the only one that I've gotten a couple drops of so far that I've been enjoying. That thing has got rewind rounds, which I'm a big fan of on like an auto weapon like that. And I think Frenzy is well in the final column, but it's going to take a lot of RNG. Impetus Court, what's jumping out to you guys for our world drops here?
Court's making a face of, I don't think I see anything attractive in any of these weapons, and I totally understand where he's coming from.
You could have just ended the sentence, I don't see these weapons, because they don't tend to drop. They're not dropping for me. And it's just a bit weird that these are, like, they're considered the world drops. But I have only seen Old Sterling. I've not seen the other two. When I started writing up the script for this, I was like, what are these other two? I've never seen them. It's just weird. So I looked at the perk pools for these, and I'm just like, it's just like, which is kind of indicative of the kind of the other weapons that we'll be talking about in a future episode. But yeah, I've got nothing really to say. I think I would need to get some to drop and then get the feel of it. But they're not dropping for me, so bug report to Bungie.
Big time. If I had one energy,
yeah.
From,
do I want
Mr.
one
Turner.
Yeah. I mean, the Glissando 47 definitely stands out as just being a better Taraxipus, since we all just started farming for that. I'll never get one, so I'll just hold on to my fourth times the charm hatchling Taraxipus and pretend it's Suros and it's nice and sleek. But yeah, I mean, there's some good rolls on these. Will I see them? Probably not. So if you've got some sweet Glissandos or Old Sterlings, feel free to tag us. I'll be wishing you good job, congrats through gritted teeth. But yeah, I think it's best to kind of treat world like out of sight, out of mind, and then when it lands in my lap, it's like, oh, for me, thank you.
But that's not the end of our weapons, is it?
No. I'll go into our playlist weapons here. Starting off in Trials, the Messenger is back. That's a kinetic high impact pulse. We've also got an Arc Adaptive Glaive Unexpected Resurgence, which surprisingly just got some new perks, according to our most recent TWAB. Not sure what that's about. It hasn't... Well, I guess the regular version of it is available in Saints Rep Track. I think it's like the level 16 one, but we haven't had the Adept one drop yet. But its perk pool got even more updated, so that's cool. Iron Banner weapons, that's been going on this week as of our recording. We've got Swarm of the Raven, that's back. A Void Heavy Rapid Fire Grenade Launcher. We've got Pressurized Precision, a Strand Adaptive Frame Fusion Rifle. I know LEGO's been very excited to talk about that, play around with it. I think you put out a video on it recently. And then for our Crucible drop, that's Randy's Throwing Knife. I've certainly been getting a ton of those to drop as I've been playing Iron Banner. That is a Kinetic Rapid Fire Scout Rifle. Over on the comp scene, we have Mercurial Overreach. That is an arc adaptive frame sniper rifle. Definitely going to be a menace as more and more people get rolls of that in PvP. It is a juicer, as we like to say. Over on the Vanguard side of things, we have a Void Precision Auto Rifle Positive Outlook. We've got our 2 Nightfall weapons, Loaded Question, that's returning Arc High Impact Fusion Rifle. Very excited. I took a look at that perk pool. That's going to be very, very fun to chase. And then we have Braytech Osprey also returning. That is a Void High Impact rocket launcher. Again, if you've looked at Court's updated infographic, you know that high impacts are second best or third best, considering there are 2 other archetypes ahead of them in terms of damage. But there are some interesting, or certainly one interesting combination on Braytech that we'll be keeping an eye out for. So we might talk about that a little bit later on once Braytech Osprey drops from a Nightfall of the week, and certainly when the Adept version of it comes out. But yes, those are the Nightfall. And then, of course, Gambit. Can't forget Gambit. We got Laser Painter, which is a Strand Precision linear fusion rifle. I took a look at that perk pool and immediately closed my webpage. Real shame about that one. And then Saint, do you want to talk about one of our best ritual weapons that we've ever gotten in a long time?
Oh, man, okay. All right. We get the last right. This is a aggressive scout rifle, DMT kind of style scout rifle. It's a fixed roll. In column 3, we have Keep Away or Reconstruction, and in column 4, we have Opening Shot or Focus Fury. Traits are text balance stock, or all the playlist traits are available here. In a word, disappointed. I really enjoy this weapon archetype, and Long Arm was I've probably used more than any other weapon from that dungeon, even though it was at the time, prior to the buffs, it was not the best. With the buffs, it's fine. It's in a decent, usable spot in PvE. You had, subsistence, rapid hit, adrenaline junkie, explosive payload. There was like some enjoyable, viable perks here. And I just was really hoping for more than Focus Fury. I'm not a big Focus Fury user, enjoyer. Not that it is like the worst, it's not the worst perk in the game by any means. You need to hit 7 shots for context on this as crits, and then you'll get a 20% buff for 11 seconds. 20% is fine. That's kind of like middle ground for our damage buffs there. But I think I would have preferred, a frenzy, right? Something that would make it stand out for me, or like a Firefly, right? It doesn't have to be insane, but something kind of unique that would really lean in on getting those precision kills. And I think the reason that I'm not huge on Focus Fury is because even though it's like, I say forgiving in its time is like what I mean there, and it is forgiveness. But I prefer perks like Adrenaline Junkie. I could get a grenade kill, or I could just be like stacking that up over time. Explosive Payload is just like a constant, Focus Fury is going to require me to go through a few targets in a row before I'm getting any kind of a buff, because they're probably going to be dying before I could even get the buff up on this. And 20% for 11 seconds, again, is not bad. I'm just not a big Focus Fury fan, and it was just sad to see, weapon archetype that I enjoy so much get another appearance and just kind of fall short for me a little bit in the PvE terms. I don't know. You guys think I'm being too harsh on this ritual weapon? Do you think this is just kind of like par for the course? How are you guys feeling?
Yeah, I think we're being too harsh on it, to be honest, buddy.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
I'm just trying to think, like, when is the ritual weapon really? What was the last one that blew my socks off? Because we obviously started off on a high note, right? Adored was okay, I think more of a PvP one, but then of course Salvagers was right after that, and we all love Salvagers. But beyond that, I mean, I gotta look at my dim here and see what other ones I've held on to, because. Well, okay, so I'll have to eat my words a little bit, because last season's Ecliptic Distaff, we did have Replenishing Aegis in column 3. That's a really great glaive trait, and I love that a lot. So I'd probably have to say that Ecliptic is better than our other Void glaive, the Enigma, just because it has updated combos, and I've got options, right? 2 and column 3 and 4. But
Yeah. And wasn't that new? Wasn't that trait new last season?
replenishing was, yeah, that's the season it came
Yeah.
out. And then it also has destabilizing, which was new last season. So, I mean, there's some good options there, but I think the reason Ecliptic beats out Enigma is just I have 4 perks to choose from as opposed to the 2 that I crafted on Enigma. So, you know, but I'm thinking, you know, past that, what if I held on to, I think I have Cry Mutiny. That's just because I don't have a lot of solar heavy grenade launchers.
Yeah, and I mean, like, to your point, looking back at like Reckless Endangerment, the shotgun.
Oh yeah,
You know, yeah. I mean, it was not anything special.
For me, I've got Veil's X and Chain of Command because it's got that unique. It's a stasis machine gun, but it's got osmosis, so it's like I don't know when we'll ever get that type of combo in the future, but. It's a machine gun. Machine guns are doing really well. If you want to play into the whole swap element, then that's your gun. It's got adaptive munitions, which again, it's maybe not necessarily the perk nowadays with the sort of offset of elemental shields. You're not up against a barrier nowadays with elemental shields. But Chain of Command, Ecliptic Distaff, and Veil's X for me. Of course,
Yeah, I just feel like
Salvage and Salvo as well.
sure.
It's just kind of inconsistent, right? Because, like, to kind of impetus to your point, some of those are juice and some of those are just not, right? And I wish we could just like anticipate a little bit more from our like ritual weapon each season, or like I wish we could expect more. And even if that meant like at the cost of its stat package to have like a unique perk offering, I would totally take that. I would totally take Last Rite having like Reconstruction Frenzy and objectively significantly worse stats than Long Arm, just for the fact that it was a unique trait combo that you like couldn't get on that weapon on anywhere else, you know.
A little bit of explosive payload.
Yeah, or even Reconstruction Explosive Payload would be fine because of the way that the reload on the weapon works, you know.
I'm just to go back to what you were asking, Impetus and I, it's just like, are we looking out for this? I'm not. I'm personally not. I'm not. I'm pretty disinterested with this. I think with it being a scout rifle, I'm not a big scout rifle fan in the best of terms anyway, unless it's an exotic. But yeah, I'm not. It doesn't really fill me up with much excitement compared to, say, Ecliptic Distaff or even Veil's X. Veil's X got a nice combo, which, you suppose you could get in other pulse rifles, or you can like mitigate that whole synergy with Repulsive Race and Golden Tricorn, you know. But I think that's just such an easy weapon to get or buy, and then you can play into it, and then you can get other weapons that can do this better. Whereas this is kind of dropped, and it's a bit like I can just get something better from the outset anyway, you know. So not for me.
Next up, we have our Last Wish Redux weapons, refresh perk pools. They are all craftable.
All 8 of them. 8.
Yeah.
Not 6. All 8. Back when we were getting weapons out the wazoo when it came to raids.
Yeah, it's kind of insane when you actually look at the whole list. Chattering Bone, Kinetic Pulse, Transfiguration, Kinetic Scout, Supremacy, Kinetic Sniper, Age-Old Bond, Void, Auto, Tyranny of Heaven, Solar Bow, Nation of Beasts, Arcane Cannon, Testing Force, Arc Fusion, and finally Apex Predator, Solar Adaptive Rocket Launcher, which I think has definitely been probably the star of this set, which brings up a interesting conversation I was having this past week. I think it was Saint Cephalopod who is posing the question of is bait and switch on this weapon worth it? And this is like the one trait set that I want to talk about in this before we move on. The kind of the thought process is Explosive Light gives you a 25% damage buff, and you could get that on 9 rockets potentially if you set yourself up well in a DPS phase. You throw it on a Well of Radiance or a Bubble, something like that. You can easily get that going. Even a Golden Gun or something like that. Bait and switch is 35%, but you have to actually use a rocket to get the perk activated. So you're going to have a single rocket that just has no buff applied to it at all. And kind of the way the math works out on that is if you have 9 rockets at a 25% increase, you're dealing the effective damage of 11.25 rockets. If you have 8 rockets at 1.35 efficacy, buffed up, plus 1 without any buff, you're at 11.8. So it's slightly more, but the issue there is that you only have like 10, 11 seconds if you have it enhanced. So you're really going to need to set yourself up with some kind of a reload boon. Luna's something, Rally Barricade, whatever that may be. So honestly, it's not, if you want to build into it and get that extra, whatever, 0.5, 0.6 damage of a rocket right there, that's great. If not, you're still doing really well, like with Explosive Light.
I think also just to point out, Explosive Light is you get 6. I think it's pretty easy to pick up orbs anyway now. Like you can just keep restacking that. This is being crafted. You can enhance it. It can go up to 7. So if you can't get those 2 other rockets that are non-Explosive Light buffed as well, that might start offsetting it. Whereas I think with bait and switch, you can effectively, again, bearing in mind all the reload stuff, if you can pair it all, you could theoretically shoot them all off. Again, this is just all like we're looking at things on paper. In practice, it might not be as viable, but just take that into consideration when it comes to Explosive Light.
Yeah, that's a great point, Court. You'd be looking at around 10.75 effective rockets worth of damage if you're not going to be picking up any additional stacks of Explosive Light there. Anything else you guys want to shout out on our Last Wish set? Anything you guys have been crafted already or really enjoying? What's going on?
So I thought we were going to be saving that for the breakdown episode, but I guess screw engagement. We're just going to do it right now. Oh my god!
Well, what's your favorite weapon? Let's just let's go with that. That's easy.
My favorite weapon? I mean, Apex Predator. You can
it has to be Apex. But then I have a Nation of Beasts has. Like I used to use that all the time because of like explosions. That was back in the day when I wasn't really interested in the science of Destiny. I just liked all the explosions. So that does have like a little kind of close to my heart kind of thing. But yeah, Apex Predator. That thing went from 0. That was down in the dirt. That was like trash, like F tier to S tier, and it's just all these perks. I will shout out. For my the one thing to shout out here is Supremacy. It is a rapid fire sniper rifle, so along with all other snipers, it got the damage buff, but also it's got the reserve buff from last season as well. The one video that I've seen is I think it's rewind rounds and 4th time's the charm, and you can effectively keep firing for about 15 minutes or something like that. It's some stupid amount of time that you just keep firing. It's a fun combo. It's not something that's like you're going to be taking into a master raid, but just very interesting to see stuff like that. Rewind rounds and 4th time's the charm.
Speaking of,
you got any?
No.
Okay.
I've crafted everything except for Age-Old Bond and Shattering Bone. I need 2 more for Shattering and 1 more for Age-Old. So hopefully the next run of Last Wish that I do should give me those final 3 due to the bug that we get for turning in that that quest to Hawthorne. So hoping I can get lucky with those drops. But yeah, I mean we've had a blast farming for these. Last Wish was the rotated raid the very first week of the season, so we were all going hard in there trying to get all of our red borders unlocked at Cali. So that was fun farming, getting good drops fast. But Apex is just it's been. I've needed a decent solar rocket launcher, and even though Starfire's been nerfed and I don't get to throw demo on there and go crazy with my DPS, I can still have a really solid. I mean, it's the best legendary rocket launcher in the game. I don't know why I'm hedging my language here. It's far and away just it blows pretty much everything else out of the water. If it was adept, it'd probably power creep some of our exotic rocket launchers. So. Go grab one if you can get into an LFG, or if you're in a clan, if you can go do some Last Wish runs. It's got so many powerful combos that we'll talk about in a later episode. A weapon set we're probably not going to be talking about a whole lot when we get to do the breakdown of them will be our seasonal taken weapons, the seasonal deep weapons. These are, they use the same models as the Reckoning weapons, which has also come back, but they have a special taken VFX applied to them. They look really cool. Unfortunately, their perk pools don't look really cool, but we do have the Different Times. That's our Strand Rapid Fire Pulse Rifle. Until its return, which is a Strand Rapid Fire Shotgun. A Distant Pull, which is the Stasis Rapid Fire Sniper Rifle. Rapacious Appetite, Stasis Aggressive SMG, Targeted Redaction, Void Aggressive Hand Cannon, and Thin Precipice, which is a Strand Vortex sword. Don't get a lot of Vortex swords anymore. That's our Spin to Win archetype, so that'll be fun to play with. Been getting a few red borders of these, dropping pretty consistently. I've got Thin Precipice and Rapacious unlocked already for crafting. I've been slowly leveling up Thin Precipice. How are you guys feeling about these? There's not a lot of need to have options on these guns, I'll have to say. There's a few of the two special weapons are actually pretty exciting. There's some pretty cool combos in there, but on the whole, how are you all feeling about these? Because I'm not wowed.
I've loaded up I mean, they do look really cool. I love the taken effect, but yeah, some of the perk pools are it's a bit lacking. Although I have a tab open here for Thin Precipice, which does have Golden Tricorn. So that 50% looks really appealing, especially for a Vortex frame, which do pretty decent damage. So that's the one that kind of caught my eye, and it's got the new collective action perk as well, if you want to go down that route. But yeah, some of these are, I mean, compared to the non-craftable Reckoning weapons, I think they're just a smidge ahead. But yeah, it's not filling me up with much joy, to be honest.
Yeah,
Same.
I'm gonna be right there with you. There's like a couple things that look pretty good. There's a new trait available on some of these guys that we'll talk about in just a second called Invisible Hand. I'm not really sure how much playtime that's going to see. It's kind of strange to see some like Rapacious Appetite, like the SMG seems like it's totally just stepping on the toes of our the SMG from Plunder. Right.
Oh, Blood
Feud.
Feud.
Things like that. Blood Feud. Yeah. I definitely look at Rapacious, and I see like Frenzy, but I'm not really sure what else I'd be doing with this outside of like what I've already got with Blood Feud, going on there. They look very good. I mean, I'll say that much. I think that I remember getting the shotgun to drop until its return and immediately inspecting that thing, and yeah, and I think that shotguns could probably still use a buff, but I'm seeing, some pretty good traits here, like, collective action. And I would love to see a buff and like a reason to use that, because a lot of these weapons look so good. But I would agree, no must-haves for me in this set, even though there are some unique ones, and we'll kind of talk about their potential a little bit further whenever we spend some time talking about that in like a more full out breakdown. But yeah, a little disappointing for some of the previous seasonal sets that we have, but nothing horrible, not just like outright bad or anything like that by any means. And we also got to their like normal versions of them. Right, the kind of original versions of Spare Rations, Outlast, Last Man Standing, Soul Survivor, Bug Out Bag, and Just in Case are the like original versions of these. They're not craftable, but they have all been added in. And I, some people are like, the return of Spare Rations was a huge deal, but I don't know. When you guys look at this set, how are you feeling about the return of like the actual Reckoning weapons? Anything from this set that has caught your eye?
I never got any of these weapons. I did one Reckoning before that was sunset, and I think I got armor. I don't think I got any weapons to drop from it. So these all been first times. I never got to really experience the Spare Rations meta. Yeah, so it's been nice for unlocking them for, my collections, but I think for pretty much all of these, I have other stuff that kind of does the job for me. Spare Ration's stat package is not viable today. I think that's a pretty safe thing to say amongst our adaptive hand cannons. It's not competing. It wasn't, of course, originally an adaptive hand cannon, which is why the stat package is off. But yeah, I just kind of feel for it because it does have some good perks, but there's too many other hand cannons with good perks and great stat packages. So I'm not quite sure what to chase here. I'm looking at the list, again, if shotguns were maybe in a better spot, I could chase a last man standing. We have enough good sniper rifles that I don't feel like I need to go for a sole survivor. Same thing with SMGs, man. We are swimming in good SMGs, so bug out bag is just not an interest for me. Swords, I mean, solar ones, I feel like we're pretty well covered on solar swords. We got the craftable one last season, didn't we? Right? Caretaker, right? That's a solar. I don't know if that's an adaptive one, but that was a solar sword that is craftable and had some pretty decent perks on it. So yeah, I'm not seeing anything that I'm just like, ooh, I'm gonna go focus for that with my seasonal engrams. How about you, Court?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at bug out bags perk pool and then just comparing it with the No Survivors, which is the solar aggressive SMG. So yeah, it's a different frame, but I'm just looking at the No Survivors, and I was like, bug out bag. I was like, oh, I could pair that collective action, which is, in solar, it's very easy to spawn fire sprites with one of the fragments, where like on kills while you've got the buff up, you will spawn a fire sprite. So it's pretty nice synergy here. But then I looked at No Survivors, which is solar again, and it's got collective action. So it's just like, oh well, that's that kind of thing. If you like adaptive frame SMGs, then yeah, go for it. But there's nothing really here. I mean, I'm not going to pair bug out bag with incandescent because I've still got my Callus mini tool. Mm-hmm. So I just, same with you, where it's like if shotguns were in a really good spot here, then yeah, last man standing is the one that I would kind of focus towards. But all 6 of these are just kind of like, if you don't have stuff from last year or the years prior, we're talking from the perspective of we've managed to craft pretty much every weapon up to this point, and we're working on this season's, and we've managed to farm all the other weapons that aren't craftable. But if you're brand new to the game, then yeah, these might be looking a bit more appealing if you can't physically or like get other weapons reliably anyway. And maybe we'll try and paint it from that perspective, but yeah, we'll get to that as we do that future episode for those type of weapons. But yeah, not impressed.
I'll tell you what we are impressed by is the entire dungeon set. You got a stasis waveframe GL, and you have a solar rapid fire glaive. You've got a solar aggressive FNG and a stasis aggressive rocket launcher. Now, I don't even know, like, I'm just a fan of the entire set. I don't even want to, give a second, because I'm pretty sure we could just go on a tear about, like, how good this entire weapon set is, and I don't know, the viability there. So I if there's anything you guys want to say, go ahead. Otherwise, we can just jump into our traits here.
I've already talked about No Survivors. Cold Comfort obviously is the one that I'm most interested in because of the specific trait. It's got some nice perks here. It's got Envious Assassin. Rocket launchers can get up to 3 on Envious Assassin. You can pair that with Bipod, goes up to 5. The other one that I've been most interested in is the grenade launcher, Stasis Waveframe. That's our first one. I think a lot of folk were disappointed that we didn't get Chill Clip with it, but I think folks need to remember the way Chill Clip works is it works off impact. And Waveframe grenade launchers don't technically have an impact stat, so it wouldn't really make much sense. And I think even if it did work, I think that would power creep the hell out of everything else if you could just Chill Clip a whole bunch of ads. A lot of fun, but yeah, you can pair collective action here. Again, that's your 20% damage buff if you can match up with just pick up any elemental pickup, but obviously pretty easy for a stasis subclass with stasis shards. I mentioned earlier on about Disruption Break on a glaive. Greasy Luck has it. But yeah, I'll talk about this in a future episode when we do the dungeon rolls. Impetus, you got any highlights here?
I was going to say, actually, aside from the Waveframe Grenade Launcher, the new Pacific Epitaph, there are pretty decent alternatives for the other three. Yes, Gracie Luck is the new archetype, new legendary archetype for Glaive, Rapid Fire. But we have really good solar SMGs. I mean, Callous Mini Tool has a pretty high bar to clear, and No Survivors does clear that, but if you don't have the dungeon, because this is a separate purchase, of course, the dungeon pack from the seasons, if you're looking at this loot, debating whether or not you want to go for it, there's other stuff that you could pick up that would kind of fill the places in your arsenal that these weapons would do, aside from the Waveframe GL, because having that in a stasis variety, that's our first kinetic slot Waveframe Grenade Launcher. You definitely want to have that. Waveframe grenade launchers are probably the best special weapon archetype, I would say, all around. If you can get a solid damage perk on them, they're really great for major enemies, but yeah, they just clear out minor enemies with ease. They're so efficient considering the size of the bullet that you fire from them, because it's a wave frame. So that's definitely the weapon to pick up, to say nothing of the armor set, which is the best armor set in the game in terms of customization for shading, and then also just the looks. It's a gorgeous armor set. But for the other ones, we just have a lot of options at hand, and I think that's pretty indicative given the lengths that Bungie's weapon team have to go to really entice us, and that's definitely the case with the Reckoning weapons and the Taken weapons. I feel like there's not a lot that will really knock my socks off. They can still do it, of course. I mean, they did it with the Last Wish weapons. There's a lot of desirable options and some must-haves if you're an in-game PvE player, but for the dungeon weapons, there's some exciting, interesting things, but very, very few must-have, need-to-have kind of. You got to have this covered when it comes to your loadouts. So I'm still going to be running for all these weapons, of course. I do want to get copies of all these. There's some stuff that I want to play around with. But yeah, we have a lot of really decent weapons outside of these activities. At this point, it's kind of, we're getting to the point where if you prefer one archetype and the way that it feels over another, well, then you maybe need to go get this particular weapon from this particular activity. But beyond that, just having one of these options around is going to kind of cover you for a lot of the activities that you want to play in Destiny, which is fine, and totally fine. I kind of like being at this level. I feel like crafting system does allow us to be at this level. But yeah, that's enough of me rambling. Let's talk about our new perks here. Let's probably start with the big one, the one that Chris Proctor teased for us when he was on the show here. It's Bipod. Court, what does Bipod do?
Yeah, so Bipod is all about reductions. So the big one here is that your rocket launcher will do 40% reduced damage, 40%. It'll also decrease the blast radius by 30, and reload speed by 20, 20. The enhanced version of Bipod will instead make it 25 and 15, respectively. But it doesn't reduce the overall damage, though, increase the reduction. It also applies a double magazine capacity onto it, so it stacks with Envious Assassin or Reconstruction, so giving 5 or 4 respectively if combined with Bipod. That's in the magazine. Remember, these perks don't necessarily affect reserves, so you're still at the still at the realm of how the reserve capacity works off. However, if you are pairing with Bipod, that does increase the total ammo capacity size by 5. So just as a little perspective, we've got 3 weapons, or 3 rockets that have Bipod this season. So as context, the numbers are as follows. So it's the base, then it's 1 reserve mod, then it's 2, and then it's 3. So Apex Predator goes from 7, 8, 9, 9, and it goes to 12, 13, 14, 14. So if you have 3 reserve mods at base level without Bipod, it's 9 rockets in total. When you have bipod, it's 14. So this perk does this special thing where it bypasses the actual cap of total ammo capacity when it comes to rocket launchers. That's a special gimmick here. For Braytech, which this is all kind of in theory because it's not available at the moment, but the numbers should line up. It goes from 7, 8, 9, 9, and then it goes to 12, 13, 14, 14. With fuel prep, this actually goes up to 13, 14, 15, 15, or 16 if the way bipod and fuel prep works off the cap. So 3 reserve mods, you'll have 16 rockets in your total ammo capacity, not just in reserves. That's your magazine plus your reserves. And then Cold Comfort has a slightly higher inventory stat size here. So it goes from 7, 8, 9, 10, and then it goes to 12, 13, 14, 15. So Apex is 7, 8, 9, 9, and then Cold Comfort 7, 8, 9, 10, just because it's got that slight increase when you've got 3 reserve mods. Saint, you had someone kind of tag you related to this. Do you want to take over here?
Yeah, Engineer, remember in Clan Truth, was asking basically, what would it take for bipod to actually be worth it? And we were talking about this before we started recording, and the short and sweet of it is basically the damage reduction would need to be 25% or less, pretty much, for bipod to really be worth it. So I think it's a really interesting perk. We're all definitely hoping for a buff, and that, whenever that comes, if you see the damage reduction change to 20% or 25% or maybe as low as 15, I don't think they would go that low. But yeah, if the damage reduction was cut in half to 20, or even just taken off by 15 points out of 25, it would be viable and outweigh some of the other perks in terms of total damage output. So it needs a little love,
And if you're wondering why we're saying that, how do you guys know that would even be an option, that they might even buff this? It's worth pointing out that for multiple in-game PvE perks, these kinds of changes have happened before. So in the case of Apex Predator and Cold Comfort, they also rolled the Bait and Switch perk, which originally debuted with the Vow of the Disciple weapon set. At launch, Bait and Switch was a 10% damage buff. It was not worth it at all for the minigame that you need to play. That was then increased all the way up to 35%. Increased damage for 10 seconds, which suddenly made it a very desirable damage perk. And right now it's more desirable than bipod. So I would, they listen to these, the weapons team, they do listen to these kinds of complaints of saying, well, this is an interesting perk, but it's just not cutting it compared to some of the other more competitive damage options. So the long and short of it is, we think bipod does need to have a bit of a tweak here, whether they want to make that either in the stat department, or as we're kind of hoping in the damage reduction department. It's just not cutting it with Explosive Light on the table, Bait and Switch on the table. Those perks just put out more easier, which is really the big discussion point there. Is it's a lot less work to get those big numbers out than it would be for making bipod in its current state worth using. So we'll keep an eye on it. It could be the case at some point down the line bipod does become a more relevant damage perk, and in which case you will know from us as soon as we find out about it.
Very unique perk, and I don't want to dispute that. I think we're just pretty disappointed with the, for me anyway, it's the 40% reduced damage. That's the big kind of killer here. I really love how you get the double magazine capacity, and you get the total ammo capacity up from, Cold Comfort from 3 reserves from 10 to 15. 15 rockets just there. And obviously, when you pick up more rockets, when you pick up a heavy ammo brick, you're getting more in return as well. I don't want this perk to be power creep, the perk. But removing the damage reduction would just swing the pendulum the opposite way. It would just become way too powerful. But I think 25%, maybe even 30%, I think that would just be, it's not quite Bait and Switch or Explosive Light territory, but it's something that I'm like, okay, I'll take this 30% reduction instead. But 40 is just way too out of whack.
Well, it's not whack at all.
Yes.
In fact, this is actually my favorite new perk that we have is Collective Action. Interacting with an elemental pickup, and I'll explain what those are in just a minute, grants a 20% damage increase for 7 seconds. Interacting with more elemental pickups increases the duration by 7 seconds, up to a total of 12 seconds. So what are elemental pickups? Well, they do tell us. That's Arc Ionic Traces, Solar Fire Sprites, Void Breaches, and Stasis Shards. And then for Strand, you need to throw a Tangle. That is the elemental pickup synergy there. So this is really cool. This is our first Elemental Synergy 3.0 perk that is not tied to a specific element. It's an inclusive elemental perk, which I love, and it's a damage related one as well, which is quite cool. So what's got me really excited about this is, we have a lot of builds revolving around Ionic Traces, Stasis Shards, Void Breaches, Fire Sprites, Tangles, of course, more recently. So I've been looking at some of those loadouts because I typically right now I've got for all my in-game loadouts I put rare weapons. Those are blue weapons in my weapon slots, and then I will save my loadout and then I delete the blue weapons. That way I don't have other weapons kind of filling in whenever I swap to loadouts, and I can keep whatever's currently equipped. But now that we have Collective Action, I can start putting in other weapons and combining stuff because I already generate these elemental pickups. So case in point, this season we've got Arc really strong, and I do have Cold Heart, which generates Ionic Traces. I'm a Warlock main, so I play with Fallen Sunstar a lot. I've been looking in my Kinetic slot to see what perks roll with Collective Action, because that can be a really easy damage perk for free, because I'm going to be generating a ton of Arc Ionic Traces. And I think we've got just like 4 weapons right now that have Collective Action in the Kinetic slot, and then 3 of them are special weapons, and then 1 of them is a primary, and the one primary is actually the Different Times Strand Rapid Fire Pulse Rifle. So, if I'm thinking about putting on an entire loadout together, including my weapons with my armor and my mods and my aspects and fragments, this is a really great way for me to start being able to fill up some of my weapon slots, because now I have some really obvious synergies, not only between my exotic armor and my ability kit, but also with my exotic weapon, and then a specific legendary weapon with a specific perk. So this is a really, really exciting build crafting opportunity that we have here with Collective Action. Saint, what have you been looking out for Collective Action? What weapons this season that have come out and have caught your eye?
This, this is a perk that really appealed to my Arc Titan, because, similar point of always just like chucking grenades out there, and you're getting those Ionic Traces so quickly. And I think I could be wrong, but I believe the no survivors can roll with this perk. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, that's definitely. That's a solar guy, but that's definitely kind of been on my mind, especially with the Fire Sprites too, and the way that can roll. I mean, that thing has some other good options, but yeah, that's probably my main lookout there. I don't know. I would agree, though. Really nice perk, really plays in well to the whole. Also, the mod that we got this season that is allowing you to gain armored charge from collecting 1 to a few elemental pickups, depending on the scenario there. Got another interesting damage perk this season, Controlled Burst. Scoring a hit with every bolt in the burst of a fusion rifle grants 20% increased damage and a shorter charge time multiplier for 2 seconds. That's pretty strong. And this is kind of like the other side of the coin of Reservoir Burst, right? Reservoir Burst is like 25%, I believe. But with this guy, you're kind of going down like the bait and switch route of you're not getting any buff on that initial shot, but if you want to fire off several shots in quick succession, you could be really shedding out some damage here with this new fusion perk. Have you guys been able to test this out at all yet?
Well, it's only on 2 fusion rifles, one of which isn't available yet, and that's Loaded Question, which is probably the one I'm most interested in, with that being a high impact and it reduces the charge time. But it is on Tekken Force. Haven't played around with it, but yeah, it's a very interesting one. Land all the bolts. Pretty easy to do in PvE. if you've got large enough targets, and you just keep sustaining that, just to keep building, or not building, but sustaining the charge time multiplier and the damage increase. Very interesting perk. Impetus, you managed to try this out?
No, I just got to level 7 on Techian Force, which is the level you need to be at to unlock controlled bursts. I see that Techian also has a rewind rounds in Column 3. Ooh, okay.
Interesting.
No, I just was complaining about us spoiling our Last Wish breakdown, but couldn't help myself. I'm trying to remember what loaded question gets in Column 3. I know it gets auto-loading. That would be a pretty sweet combo there. It gets that. Okay.
Overflow, Envious Assassin.
Demo. All
Yeah,
right.
how about that?
Okay. We are
Spoilers.
we are sitting good for our fusion rifles, man. I think we can stop after this season. Yeah, this is a fun one. It's like 1-2 punch, but for fusion rifles. That's cool. I like that a lot. Yeah, we'll have to play with it again. It's only on 2 fusion rifles, and they're both arc, so they're kind of competing for the same slot in your inventory. But you've got options, so yeah, very excited for that.
All right,
go ahead, Court. You actually can do this one.
No, I was just going to round us off here. We've got 3 other perks. I don't think we're really going to talk about much of them because I think they're more, well, maybe could see some use in PvE, but more specific for PvP. But we've got Discord, which is upon readying a weapon within 7 seconds of getting a kill with a different weapon, gain the following for 7 seconds. It's 25% faster ADS duration multiplier, 25% decreased accuracy cone size, and plus 30 AE. And while Discord is active on a weapon kill, it fully refills primary weapons magazine and it refunds 1 ammo for special weapons. Eddy Current, which is the amplified it's the second elemental perk if you want to count amplified. Temporarily increases reload speed after sprinting, and the effect is improved while you're amplified. I think we're still kind of collecting some data for this one. And Invisible Hand, which is repeatedly missing targets, increases the weapon's stability for a short time. This buff lasts for a short duration after a target is hit. Saint, you mentioned Invisible Hand earlier on. Have you got any comments here about that? Have you tried that out?
I'll tell you what I'm seeing right now is somebody just spraying at a wall and then turning around a corner and proccing the perk off you is what I'm anticipating right here. This is I know this is like some Cammy Cakes level of PvP, mentality here. But if I can anticipate that, you better believe that he can execute on it. Because I mean that's just what Cammy does, But I think it's kind of a strange perk. Because like the only other perk we had like this is like Mulligan, right? Where if you missed shots, have a chance to return to the magazine. But this one actually encourages you to like spray around a corner and then hit your target, which I don't know. It seems strange, but we'll see how that actually plays out. And Discord is really could be good on a primary if you have like you get a kill with your special weapon, you swap to your primary, and you can just get what is essentially like improved subsistence over time, which is cool. Again, not sure how crazy that's going to go in PvE compared to some other perk options that are in that same column for the weapons that it appears on, but I definitely see Discord as a viable option for a primary weapon, which we'll talk more about where that shows up as we do some weapon breakdowns over the next few weeks. We got some origin traits to talk about real quick. I'll start us off with the first one, Disaster Plan. This is on the reprised Reckoning weapons, and it states that on ammo pickup, you gain range and flinch resistance, or plus 100 charge rate for your swords, and the buff will disappear after a second and a half of firing or swinging that sword. Not exactly sure what the stats are on this. Kind of an interesting one. Again, I'm not sure how much the range and flinch resistance will come up. This definitely seems like the kind of a thing where you are maybe like in the Crucible, you get a sniper kill, you pick up the ammo off of your opponent, and then you have like the range and flinch resistance on your sniper is like the only scenario where I could see that really like come into play. But I don't see I don't see much of this, like the charge rate for swords. I don't really see as being a huge boon in PvE. That would just be kind of hard to coordinate because you'd want charge, like it only lasts for like a second and a half, and you want higher charge rate maybe for like a sword TPS phase. But yeah, I don't know. Second one up here is Explosive Pact from our Last Wish reprise. On grenade ability usage, grants stability and reload speed for 7.5 seconds, which can be stacked multiple times. Healing grenades and grenade kills grant more stacks. Okay, now that's pretty interesting. Stability, reload speed. Reload speed is definitely a stat that I'm interested in. So I'm kind of like getting like a demolitionist light from using my grenade, which is definitely appealing to me. And just what else we got here?
Yes, the final two that we got Restoration Ritual. That's from our new dungeon, Ghost of the Deep weapons. Those four get this. So on ally revival or an enemy finisher, prepares an emergency reload that will refill a portion of the magazine the next time your magazine counter reaches 0 ammo. Now, for the rocket launcher, because this is where I think everyone is really, really excited, this is always going to be a +1, one rocket back in your magazine. But this is essentially giving you an auto reload every time you use up your weapon's magazine after an ally revival or finisher. Definitely the PvE origin trait, and definitely a viable PvE origin trait, which is really nice. There's definitely a time and place for ally revival and finishing enemies in pretty much every PvE activity. I mean, it definitely seems like a GM Nightfall origin trait if I've ever seen one, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be doing... Go ahead.
Considering two of the weapons are single magazine weapons.
Yeah.
This is pretty quite a juicer. I think everyone's looking at the rocket launcher, but yeah, remember, 2 for a stasis or for a wave frame is still pretty good. Just get that kind of add clear potential out. But the rocket launcher getting that +1 that's what's really drawing my attention away from Apex. But interesting that Explosive Pact does give you that. Stability for rocket launchers doesn't really matter, but for reload speed, for 7.5 seconds, for just throwing out a grenade or using a healing grenade on your allies. So it's this like toss up between do you want that extra free reload or do you want an extended period of high reload? We're not sure what Explosive Pact gives in terms of reload, but it's a nice little kind of yin and yang kind of back and forth that I'm very interested in seeing.
The showdown between Apex Predator and Cold Comfort, man. Which one is the best rocket launcher to use? I'm loving it. Our final new origin trait, this is for the Taken weapons from Season of the Deep, is Unsated Hunger. Goodness. If your grenade, melee, and ability, class ability that is, are not fully charged, you will have a stability, handling, and reload speed bonus, or if it's a sword, +50 charge rate and +40 guard endurance. We are still getting the exact points for the stability, handling, and reload speed, but boy, fellas, that's a pretty tall ask. No grenade, no melee, and no class ability, and I get my weapons get what should honestly be like 100 stability, 100 handling, 100 reload speed, because I would be in deep trouble if I'm in that spot and I only have my weapons to go off of and not a super, because you don't want to be in that position. So
this is like
not feeling that
anti-surplus. Not really sure what's going on here, but yeah, I would definitely agree that those bonuses should be doubled.
We'll still figure that one out, of course. It's only the second week of the season. We're still working on collecting the finer points for all this stuff. But 2 of these 4, though, very, very excited to see how they play out. They should be quite strong in in-game PvE. That's Explosive Pact and Restoration Ritual, of course. So go grab some weapons from those activities. Get that new origin trait on your Last Wish weapons. And go play Ghost of the Deep. It is a ton of fun, and those weapons have a pretty sweet origin trait on them. Mm-hmm. Last thing we're going to talk about here is the changes to exotics, and of course our 2 new mods that we got with our mod system here. So a lot of armor got reworked, of course. A few exotic weapons got reworked. We're kind of going to just touch on what we've interacted with so far, because we haven't played with all the armor pieces that have been touched on, but we're keeping an eye on all the things, of course, that have been tweaked. We'll just kind of go in the order that we normally do here. Court, if you want to start off, what hunter changes have you been playing with, or maybe some of the other changes if you played with stuff on Titan and Warlock that have caught your eye?
Yeah, so for Hunter, a lot of changes, but I think most of them kind of applied for PvP, and then a lot of it was kind of in conjunction with the other two, Titan and Warlock, like Mask of Bacchus getting that kind of pseudo-surge mod applied to it. But for me personally, I've not used Oathkeeper, but I really want to. I think it's up to 150%, 150% for most bows except Leviathan's Breath. So very interesting change there. If you're into bows, you like that damage increase. Raiju's Harness got the kind of same thing with surge mods. I did try it out, but again, I'm still not convinced Arc Staff's really that great. And even if I'm going to use a chest exotic for Arc Staff, it's going to be Raiden Flux. But I'll definitely play around with it. And then lastly, for me anyway, was Radiant Dance Machines. I want to put that into build at some point because I think you can sustain that. Being able to dodge everywhere a lot, as long as you keep those kills up, and you know I like to slay out, so very interesting change for Radiant Dance Machines. For the other classes, for me, I think were mostly to do with Warlock. I did play around with Vesper Radius before they disabled it. Chromatic Fire, very interesting change. I do like that change with Chromatic Fire. And then I did play around with Starfire Protocol and was just like, yeah, this is going back into my vault. Saint, what have you been using for Titans or other exotics?
It's got to be Point Contact Cannon Brace.
Yeah.
I was a little critical of this exotic when it first came out. It's just Skull Fort with extra steps, but it is so not that anymore. I am not quite all the way through my Arc Artifact mod unlocks. There are some stuff at the very kind of end at the artifact that I'm very excited about. But it's just incredibly fun to use. Also, second chance, mess around with that a little bit. Strongholds, gauntlets are like not functioning correctly. They are functioning very well, though. I'm just waiting for that to get nerfed. But in the meantime, strongholds are a lot of fun. Second chance gauntlets, I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about them yet. I've just tested them just a little bit. I'm going to try to use them a little bit more in some like lost sectors and stuff like that, and hopefully some higher tiered nightfalls to try to get a better feel for where those landed. Really want second chance to be good. I'm really interested in that exotic, and the way that it allows my ability to just directly stun a champion is very appealing to me. Eternal Warrior is cool. I enjoy being able to use things like the holster mods. You kind of, to Rodney's point, we did the interview of like, yeah, this seems like a nerf to Doom Marchers, but also the way that Eternal Warrior and Doom Marchers are working now allows you to like spec into other things. And that does feel good. And being able to like build into those just kind of damage focused builds. I'm still using Burning Steps, and I'm still using I'm using Eternal Warrior now too. But yeah, Point Contact, absolutely, with a massive glow up. Haven't really touched any backup plans, kind of TBD on that one. Impetus, what's going on with the Warlock stuff?
Well, we finally got a Starfire Protocol ornament, so that feels pretty cool. It's a shame the armor no longer exists, but that's something, right, guys? No, we all saw it coming. I joked about it plenty of times. It is brutal. I did try and use it in the dungeon when I was going through for the first time and quickly swapped to something else more useful to my fire team. Rip Starfire. Chromatic Fire, though, I definitely do want to try out. I've been leveling up a few kinetic weapons because I'm trying to build out an arsenal that I could use for that. But I'm excited to kind of bust out the Submission, the Fatebringer, and then, keep using Hung Jury, or I've been leveled up Transfiguration as well as just decent kinetic primaries that can easily hit precision damage so that I can really take advantage of that. Didn't get a chance to play with Vesper. It seems like it'll be interesting, but I'll bust it out. A lot of these other ones, Mantle Battle Harmony just does not appeal to me because typically I don't hold on to my super a whole lot in PvE. I like to cast it right away. So that doesn't really excite me. Sanguine Alchemy, you know, maybe one day I'll have a reason to really care about my Rift usage, but not enough to justify an exotic armor for it. Yeah, weapon surges be darned. Trying to look at some other ones that I have. I have quite a few rolls of some of these that, you know, I've been waiting to use, but I just haven't had a reason to do it. I do want to bust out Claws of Ahamkara because I know that now stacks with the Strand melee and see how many charges. Just look at the sheer number of charges that I have, but I keep forgetting to put those on, so I'll do that at some point. But yeah, I haven't played around a whole lot. Dawn Chorus, I still refuse to wear out of principle. That function should just be given to the Solar Kit, so that, you know, that's a pride thing. And then Prometheum Spur, I'm not going to touch Prometheum Spur, actually. I'm just going to chalk that one up to a pride issue as well. I don't know why that's in the game, but hey, if you want to get healing and empowered at the same time, when I use my super that I never use, sure, go for it. Yeah, those changes aren't getting me far enough. I have used a fitting aspect, actually, because I've been playing Iron Banner. Still feel great. You know, the melee desync is still an issue for like every class, so I'm not really sure why that had to get changed, but yeah, I guess warlocks are no longer as prone to do some weird melee shenanigans. But yeah, I haven't played around with a whole lot of these, but I am excited for a few that did get touched, and I do want to touch some of the Titan ones in particular. I definitely want to make work because I do have some good rolls of no backup plan and point contact cannon brace that I want to try out. So those are the armor. Not a lot of thoughts. We do have the 2 new mods, Powerful Attraction, Elemental Charges. You guys played around with those? I keep forgetting that they're in the game. I need to start adding them to some of my existing builds.
Yeah, that's the problem I had was like we've got these 2 new mods, but then I'm just like I need to find A, time, but also B, space to actually put these in. We don't have the data for Powerful Attraction yet. That's the one where you collect nearby orbs of power, larger radius, the more mods equipped when you cast your ability. For obviously, for my hunter friends, this will be a really good one if you're really tapping into orb collection. But we do have some numbers for elemental charges. That's the one that goes in your legs. Powerful Attraction is your class. Collect elemental pickups or destroying strand tangles adds to a counter where reaching 100% gives you 1 armor charge. More mods provide a larger percentage gain. So for fire sprites, breaches, and tangles, that's 50% at 1. It's the same at 2, and then 100% at 3. So if you've got 3 mods, you're getting an armor charge when you pick up or you destroy a tangle. Pick up a fire sprite or breach. Ionic Trace, because it's a little bit more often you spawn them, it's 34% at 1, 50% at 2, and again 50% at 3, so caps off really at 2. And for Stasis Shards, again, it's something that you can spawn more often with the individual aspects for each class, 25% at 1, 34% at 2, and 50% at 3. So, haven't used these yet. I think maybe for endgame, I think GMs, this will be a mod that's more appropriate to be kind of focusing towards, because it's really easy to pick up orbs in lower end content, to be honest. So I want to try these out in like master and grandmaster content, but I haven't really used them a lot, but I do want to. Saint, you utilize these yet?
Yeah, I definitely see being able to just use 1 mod for the void breaches is really nice, because I feel like that's something that's going to be popping off a lot if you're using those void artifact mods. But then again, you got to think if you are gonna make room for this in your legs, you either need to bump out one of your surge mods or recuperation, which is again, it's kind of a tough argument. This mod economy is difficult. But yeah, I would agree that it maybe in some kind of more in-game focused builds, this could be pretty viable. Very last note for today's episode is going to be on some weapon changes. We we had a 10% bump to sniper rifles in PvE, which is pretty nice. Feels good. Not sure if that's quite going to shift the meta, but it is nice. And then we saw a lot of buffs to Eyes of Tomorrow, Graviton, Acreus, Tommy's Matchbook, and Salvation's Grip. I know personally I've been using Legend of Acreus a lot. That got bumped up from 12 to 16 ammo, and then the projectile distance got increased from 9 to 12 meters. Really strong weapon, really fun weapon to use. Have you guys used any of these other exotics that got big reworks?
I know Court has.
Eyes of Tomorrow I've been using, obviously with doing the rocket launcher infographic. I kind of had to do all the rocket launchers again, but that is actually a really fun one. I think they've finally solved the problem with Eyes of Tomorrow. They were always going to make Eyes of Tomorrow focused on ad clear. That was never going to change. We were never going to get a meta of Eyes of Tomorrow and Wardcliff Coil, as we've seen before. They do not want those rocket launchers being single target damage. But they're very happy keeping these as ad clear. And boy, does Eyes of Tomorrow deliver, because you get one ammo for free. It's not from reserves, it's just from thin air. So you're effectively just keep firing. It's one of those weapons where there's no net loss. It's just always gains. So I've been having a ton of fun with Eyes of Tomorrow in those kind of ad-dense activities. So maybe not salvage, but definitely deep dive. The other one that I've used a lot, I've used Graviton Lance a little bit, not in PvP, but PvE. It's really fun. It feels really good now. The nice little revamp. I was looking forward to it, and it feels more snappy. Legend of Acreus, we already talked about it earlier on, but that's 12 to 16 total ammo, and then the max projectile distance from 9 to 12 meters. Yeah, I mean, they keep buffing it, and I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Really good in the second encounter for the dungeon, which we'll talk about another episode. Tommy's Matchbook, I've put this in the script because I did use it a lot. I thought this would be like, it's just kind of a throwaway, but it's actually pretty fun. Just getting that kind of on-demand ignition. You can totally get the ignition in one magazine because it's you apply 14 or 21 stacks of Scorch with ashes every 5 shots while you're overheated. And obviously this would be a lot more useful for Saint and his Actium War Rig build, but even for Warlocks, because, they can circumvent that whole kind of health reduction that you get when you're overheated. And then finally, for me, Salvation's Grip, bowling. A lot of fun. I think they've done a really great job with the rework, and it feels like an actual exotic now. Yeah, it's maybe not, endgame meta, but for ad clear, for tapping into your stasis subclass, which I'm all for, a lot of fun. Saint, what any highlights?
Yeah, honestly, it's just been Acreus. I really need to give Tommy's a chance because I do have that build. I've been using Sweet Business. I've been using the new seasonal arc one. So I've already got it set up. I just need to slot that thing in there and switch over to some solar and watch the world burn.
It's a good feeling sometimes. I haven't actually played with these exotics too much. I have been playing with sniper rifles though, because I've been leveling up Supremacy. So that extra inventory that Rapid Fire's got, plus the 10% PvE damage buff to snipers, feels good. Especially when you can put a lot of bullets downrange, which is what the Rapid Fires are all about. So, yeah, been loving that. We'll see if we have a sniper rifle meta, but if we do, we're well poised to take advantage of it. So, very excited to play with these exotics in a little bit of time. I've certainly died to Graviton Lance a whole lot in Iron Banner, which feels great. But yeah, I definitely.
All right, come on, we don't talk about PvP here.
Sorry, yes, of course.
This is a safe place.
I'll go back to my dungeon with Legend of Acreus and continue to blast away at Ekfar.
I think at the top of the episode we did mention we'd maybe talk about ability stuff this episode, but I think we've been delaying it and we keep talking about doing a big kind of comparison between all the abilities, all the exotic armor, and now we've had like a nice kind of collection of exotic armor that have got kind of uplifts or overhauls or nerfs. we'll certainly endeavour to do an episode of all that in the future. So we'll leave our thoughts for the super abilities changes for then. All right, I think that's it. Anything else you guys want to throw in before we finish things up?
I'm good.
All right, over to you, Saint.
Yep, that is all we've got for episode 65. Thank you for tuning in, supporting the show week after week. You also want to thank our audio engineer, Autodidaktos, for keeping us sounding great every episode. If you've got feedback on the show or questions about a specific trait combo that you've been trying out, feel free to reach out to @MassiveBreakdowns on Twitter or any of our personal accounts, or chat it up in the Destiny Massive Breakdowns Discord server. We've got some great Destiny science, podcast discussion, and of course, the Patrons Lounge for the supporters of the show. My name is Saint Kabir. You can find me by Saint_Kabir on Discord, Twitter, and by that same name in-game. Impetus, where can listeners find you?
My name is Impetus. You can find me by that name in Discord and in Destiny, and as Impetus always on Twitter. Court, where can our listeners find you?
Yep, you can find me over on Twitter as @CourtProjects and the Discord as Court. You can find my infographics and spreadsheets over on my socials and the Destiny Massive Breakdowns website, along with other applications and websites to enhance your Destiny experience. All right, that's it for the first week of Season 21. We'll see you next week.